My favorite thing about this Inkblot effect is just how delightfully sloppy you can be when creating it. And bonus, you'll want to stay to the end to find out how to turn this solid black ink into a vibrant watercolor effect. Literally like one step. I'm Abby Esparza, and I've been creating creative composites for about 10 years now, and all the resources featured today can be found over on Envato Elements, where you get unlimited downloads of graphics, photos, and fonts, all with super simple commercial licensing. Plus, a no lock-in contract means you can cancel anytime. Subscribe now with the link down in the description. So let's start right off by creating just a super simple paper texture background. You can do this on different colors and textures, but I'm going to stick with a very light gray color because I'm just a sucker for a black and white color scheme. And then we're going to drop any paper texture onto the canvas, setting it to multiply, and bringing it down to around 15 or so opacity. Now we see a very slight texture, but we want to bring out more of that nice grainy paper feeling. We can do just that by adjusting the texture's image, adjustments, levels. Try recreating something like what you see here, though settings like these never need to be exact and will change wildly from image to image. And if you want to increase that paper texture even more, you can also increase the opacity percentage. Next, we can extract and place our subject. I used the select subject since the model here was on a nice, flat, easy black background. But any method is gonna work just as well. Keep in mind though, since we're doing a messy ink effect, the extraction does not have to be anywhere near perfect. In fact, some level of sloppiness is more than welcomed. Now we can inkify our subject, which will be done using just 5 different smart filters. Now, a smart filter is an adjustment filter applied to a smart object. So make sure your subject is a right-click smart object if they aren't already. And we're going to start with image adjustments black and white, just with the default settings. Second, we're going to add a filter, camera raw filter. Now we're going to go into the detail menu and set noise reduction to 100. This will simplify the subject, removing extra details without ever affecting the more essential features like the eyes or hair. And while it doesn't look like much now, this will actually drastically change the final effect depending on the subject. You may end up dialing this filter back or doubling up on it later on. This will do for now though. But remember, we can always come back and edit any of our smart filters. Moving on to our third filter, we have an image adjustments curves. This setting will vary wildly from subject to subject and mostly depend on image lighting and skin tone. If your subject is super pale or bright, you might be able to just skip it altogether. I like to make a base adjustment and then just come back and refine it if I end up needing to. Basically, we want the main features like the eyes, eyebrows, lips, hair, and the main curves of the face to be nice and dark, while the rest of the skin is very bright, overly bright. Usually we try to avoid this, but in this case we want it to be a little or a lot overexposed. Because our fourth filter is the filter doing all the work. It's an image adjustments polarize filter, setting the levels anywhere from 2 to maybe 5. I chose 2 for a super dark ink effect. This setting controls how many level shades will be used in the image. So a levels of 2 means basically if it's not black, it'll be white, and if it's not white, it'll be black. No shades of gray. The higher we set the levels to, the more variation in shades of gray will be incorporated. This is also the point where you may want to go back and adjust both your noise reduction filter and curves filter. Now, the first time I did this effect, it took me about 15 minutes to really pinpoint my exact curve settings. Since I already know what I'm shooting for, and this is the second or third time doing this effect on this particular subject, I don't have to make as many final refinements. I don't have as much of that back and forth. But otherwise, it's perfectly normal to do a lot of back and forth here. That's why we use smart filters, so we can always go back and edit them. Now, smart filters will use up a lot of your computer's memory or increase the size of your PSD. If that is a problem and you notice Photoshop is chugging along a bit slow, you can always dial in your settings, take advantage of those smart filters, but then once you're happy, you can right-click rasterize image, and that will permanently apply all the smart filters. That way you get all of the benefits with less of that slowdown. And we're going to finish up these filters with a filter distort ripple effect, setting the amount to 75%. This will help prevent the subject's edges from being too perfect and give a almost bleeding ink-like effect. Small but noticeable. Let's set the subject's layer mode to multiply. Then we can take the subject and flip her horizontally, placing her on the opposite side of the canvas. You can hold Shift and use the right arrow key to move the ink copy over without having to worry about her shifting up or down. We want them to be horizontally aligned, an equal distance from the very center of that canvas. We also want to group the two subjects together, naming that group subjects, trying to be nice and tidy. Now we can start building out the main bulk of that design. I'll be using these 19 Mystic ink shapes from Envato Elements. They are all PNGs, so they are super easy to use, but any inkblot on a flat white background will also work. They don't need to be extracted or PNGs. Before placing the textures, we want to create a group below our subjects group, naming it Ink. There we go. Then, using the rectangular marquee tool, we want to select a half of the canvas and add a layer mask to that group. We're masking out the whole right side of the canvas, making sure it's split directly down the middle. Think of this as the fold in a piece of paper. Then we can start building up our ink design. How you go about this is completely up to you. There is no one way, no method to the madness. I grabbed the ink PNGs from the graphics pack and brought them onto my canvas one by one, setting each PNG to multiply and then moving them around so that they create just interesting shapes. I liked how one of the ink textures almost mimicked the shadow of her cheekbone, and then for the rest I just tried to recreate cool looking formations. This is an experimental process, kind of like a puzzle with no wrong pieces or answers. You can kind of just zen out and play with things. It's okay if it's super dark, we'll be doing some final detail masking right at the end. We just want to focus on creating the main shapes of that ink blot. Now we do want to make sure we're 100% happy with our design right now if we're going to keep perfect symmetry later on. So make sure to make any changes now before duplicating the ink group. I am happy with this, so I'm going to take that duplicate that I just made and right click flip horizontally, and then move it to the right side. Again, hold Shift and use the right arrow key to move the copy over a bit quicker. And then let's group the two ink groups together and name the group Main Ink, or Master Ink, which sounds slightly nefarious. And then we can do my favorite part, which is painting in some smaller ink details using some nice Photoshop ink brushes. Now, I highly recommend this specific set as it's not only very realistic, but contains both stamp style brushes for any mouse users and painterly style brushes, which are ideal if you use a tablet like I do. So let's set up our canvas for painting in Symmetry. Symmetry works well whether you use a pen tablet or not, so don't worry about that. Let's grab our brush tool and then click on the icon of a butterfly kind of being split in two up here on the options bar. And then we'll choose vertical split. Now we set up our active symmetry area. Hold down Shift and use the anchors to position the symmetry area around your canvas, with the middle guide placed directly over the middle of your design. From here, you're just going to paint on one side of the canvas, and then that same brushstroke will appear on the opposite side. You're free to paint on whichever side you want, but as they'll just mirror one another, it just doesn't matter. So let's create a new layer outside of our main ink group, setting it to multiply. We can use our ink brushes to paint details in the ink design, things like small accent dots or longer, finer lines. It's smart to try and find the lines that kind of already exist and then bring them out to a finer point, or add even more details to them. Make sure to remove any harsh edges and keep things nice and messy. Also, make sure to use the ink brushes with the eraser brush to remove parts of the ink, but still keep that nice ink-like texture. Along with those finer ink details, you can bring out the detail in the subject's face or darken larger areas of that primary ink design. Try and bring some lighter washes of ink around the darker edges of the subject, especially around areas like the chin that may come off a bit too clean and sharp. We want to avoid anything looking too precise. You can add to and adjust these parts of your inkblot at any time, so feel free to revisit this layer to make any changes later on. Just make sure symmetry is still on if you do. For now, let's move on from painting to masking. Keep the symmetry area turned on and add a layer mask to the subjects group. Use this mask to mask any areas of the subjects that are either too harsh or any details you just don't want. I ended up masking out the edges of the face and parts of her top. Again, since symmetry is on, we only have to mask one subject, and the second subject will be masked right along with it. Finally, we can add a layer mask to the main ink group and use ink brushes to mask and refine the main design. This is your chance to create more negative space, add more white to your design, or create a more intricate design within that main plot of ink. Again, there is no one way to go about this. Just mask things in and out using the ink brushes until you're happy with what you have. Remember, you can always paint in even more of those finer little details on a new layer, or go back and adjust your previously painted details, as long as symmetry stays active. Super quick bonus tip, I mentioned earlier that you can make this as colorful as you want. A great way to go about this is just by dropping in a colorful ink texture and then setting it to lighten. And then we can just line it up with the middle of our inkblot here. Duplicate and flip. Align the duplicate. And we've transformed the ink into a pretty watercolor effect. And you can do this with pretty much any kind of texture. And that's going to be how to make a Rorschach Inkblot effect in Photoshop, with a surprise watercolor effect to boot. That's going to do it for today though. If that wasn't enough and you're looking to learn even more, why not check out some of the other videos that Envato Tuts Plus has to offer. If you liked this video, I'm very happy to hear it. Consider giving us a like and even subscribing if you haven't already. And don't forget to click the little bell icon to be notified of all new videos, including tips, tricks, and tutorials. Happy designing, see you next time.